introduction. Kevin, are you ready to? Or
Yeah, I'm ready right now.
All right. Good evening. This is the Guilford Board of Education. It is Thursday, November 3rd. This is a special meeting tonight. We get the opportunity to meet Dr. Freeman's candidate for Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum, Instruction, and Assessment. So we're very excited this evening. There has been an interview process that has involved a couple of board members, administrators, teachers, parents, and a student in this process. And it culminates tonight, again, in the opportunity to meet the candidate that is going to be put before us for approval. I'm going to invite Dr. Amity Gus to come up and join us, please, if you would. And then I'm going to ask Dr. Freeman to share a few words with us. Welcome.
Thank you.
Wonderful to have you join us tonight.
Thank you. Well, wonderful to be here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Balistraci. I really am very excited to be here tonight and to be presenting this candidate to all of you. I'll take just a few minutes before introducing Amity to go over the search itself. So this process has been ongoing since early September. We began by advertising nationally for the opening that we have for an assistant superintendent for curriculum, instruction, and assessment. We advertised in educational publications, again, that are nationwide, and we advertised heavily here in Connecticut and in the Northeast. We received a really exciting and healthy response to that posting and to that advertisement. We drew a total of 32 complete applications for this position. The application respondents came primarily from the Northeast, but we did have a couple international applications who applied for this position. Mr. Bowden and I began the process in earnest after reviewing all 32 applications by meeting and talking with 22 of those 32 applicants in what we describe as screening interviews. I know I've told this board before, but I carry a lot of anxiety about missing good candidates by eliminating a large swath through a paper screen only. So again, Mr. Bowden and I sat down for only about 20 minutes each, but we sat down with 22 of the initial 32 applicants. From that initial screening, we moved 6 candidates forward to a full interview process. Dr. Balistraci, as you mentioned, that first interview committee was a committee of approximately 10. It included a student representative, parents from the community, Board of Education members, teachers, primarily teachers. Teachers were the single largest block of that committee, building level administrators, and central office level administrators. That committee met across 2 days with 6 candidates through an extensive interview. We brought that pool down to 3 candidates. I met individually with each of those 3 candidates, spent more than an hour with each of the candidates simply one-on-one. Those candidates then came forward to what we characterize as the performance interview. The performance interview ran for about 90 minutes with each candidate. That again included teacher representatives, building level administrators, central office administrators, and in this case 2 Board of Education members. Dr. Balistraci and Dr. Hirsch both participated in those interviews. Additionally, while the entire process was ongoing, I was conducting reference checking, we were doing social media screenings, and we were looking into the candidates, talking to both their listed references as well as unlisted references. Through that process, I am really, really pleased to bring forward Dr. Amity Gus. We had incredibly qualified candidates, and Amity rose to the top of that pool. Amity has been an educator in Connecticut for some time. She's got a distinguished career in Connecticut so far. She has been a teacher. She has been a literacy specialist. She's been an assistant principal and a principal both at the elementary level. And for the last 7 years, Amity has been working as the director of curriculum, instruction, and assessment in the old Saybrook school system. She moves in a number of circles that I move in the state. I know people who don't work in Old Saybrook but know of her work and have collaborated with her outside of the system. Her references were simply stellar. I couldn't find an individual who didn't respect her work and enjoy working and partnering with her. We are really excited to bring Dr. Amity Goss to you tonight, and I am really proud to be asking you for your approval of her appointment once you've had the opportunity to spend some time talking with her.
Wonderful, thank you. And again, welcome. You know, one of the things we often have at our meetings is nameplates, and we don't have them in front of us. So I'm going to ask just the board to introduce ourselves to you so you know who you're talking to. I think that seems like a reasonable thing to do, so I'm wondering if we could start.
Sure. I'm Noel Petra.
Dick Hirsch.
Katie Balistraci.
Moira Rader.
John Delaventura.
Christy Faulkner.
Jennifer Baldwin.
Arnold Scudder.
Nice to meet all of you.
Okay, now your first question. Can you give us all?
Stumped me already.
So this is really an opportunity for, you know, I've gotten a chance to know you through this interview process. I know Dr. Hirsch has, but this is a chance for all of us to get to know you a little bit. Just ask a few questions to hear a little bit about your thoughts as you are considered for candidacy for this district. And I'm just going to start out with a question. You know, why are you interested in continuing your career here in Guilford? What brings you to Guilford?
I thought a lot about that when this opportunity sort of became available, because I wasn't looking for a job. I didn't have a resume. I had to kind of pull all those things together quickly because a number of people called me and said, there is an opportunity that you cannot miss coming up. And so I started to do a little bit of research into Guilford, and of course, you know, we're right up the road a piece, so I knew a little bit about Guilford. But the more I have learned about Guilford, the more excited I am about this opportunity. So much of what you're already doing here resonates with me, and it really is related to my personal passions in so many ways. When I think about the purpose of public education, it seems very much aligned with your portrait of a graduate. That's what I'm looking for in a graduate of a public school system. The idea that we recognize here that students are going to be entering into a global society, and that in that global society they'll need to interact with all kinds of people from all kinds of backgrounds, and they need to be prepared for that. That's really important to me, and something that I want for my own children, and so something that I want for every child who enters public school. And a lot of the instructional models that I see reflected in your schools and in literature online really resonate with me. The idea that experiential learning matters here, the idea that coaching and ongoing learning for adults, that job-embedded professional learning is part of your model and part of what you believe in here. Those things are all very important to me. And so each time I would meet with Dr. Freeman in a different context, I would learn more about the district and think, oh my goodness, this is somewhere I have to be.
Thank you. Others, I want to give others a chance to ask questions or interact with Dr. Goss.
I'll ask a question. Just, I think it's important because we've done a lot of work over the last several years around diversity, equity, and inclusion, and social emotional learning. I mean, they're different pieces, but they interact with each other. What's your comfort level about that as a, you know, kind of the one who oversees curriculum? Not that we change any curriculum around those initiatives, but I'm curious to get your perspective on, you know, the climate of that in public education and kind of where you stand on that.
Right. Well, those are actually two components of our most recent strategic plan in Old Saybrook. And those ideas came from our communities. Those were not something that started in the school district. They're something that was brought into the school district as we created our plans. And I'm sure that's exactly the same here as it is in Old Saybrook. So the idea that we need to pay attention to the whole child, you know, all parts of the children who walk through our doors every day is very important. And that children need to be reflected in their curricular materials, but that they also need to reflect the world at large, and that students need to be exposed to all of those ideas, and have really courageous conversations and understand what it is to have a conversation with someone with whom you don't agree, and for that not to break down into a fight, but to become a real debate and, you know, really evidence-based. I think all of those things are really important for our students. And it really is the work that we've always wanted to do, that we've always sought to do in public school. I think it's just become more public.
Thank you.
And kind of along those lines, obviously you did your research before coming here, so that you know that there's the potential that you may have people who interact with you in a negative way. Do you, how would you deal with that?
Well, so I think it depends on the specific context. But generally speaking, the way that I deal with any sort of a concern or a conflict that a parent is bringing to me is, or a community member is bringing to me, is to try to understand the perspective that they're bringing, to listen, to hear what it is that they're wondering. A lot of times there's fear driving those conversations. And so thinking about what would it be like to be in this person's shoes, you know, to walk a mile in their shoes and understand what's driving their approaching me in that way. Because I think everybody really wants what's best for their children, right? And so when you treat every person with a recognition that that's their motivation, it's an entirely different conversation.
That's great. Thank you.
So we already are proud to have a stellar academic school system. We're very proud of it, and so is the rest of our town. It's one of our biggest economic drivers, for sure. People move here for our school systems. Sometimes it's very difficult to take an already excellent situation and elevate it even more, but that's why we're here, and that's why you're here. So one of the most common bits of feedback that I've been receiving from the people in town has been, you know, our excellent students receive the most, not the most attention, but they get the most recognition, which is kind of normal. And what they've asked is somehow can we take that achievement and pull it down to the next levels of student. So do you have any ideas for how to do that? Because we've been saying, yes, we'd like to do that. Of course, we'd like to do that. So if you can just talk about that a little bit. How can we do that?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of current research about some of the things that we've thought were best practices in supporting all students in the past that we're learning are not necessarily the best way to make sure that all students are achieving. So a lot of the emerging research around acceleration is really interesting to me because we have traditionally in American public schools focused on remediation. And really, if you actually think about that philosophy, if you're always working at a level that is below a student's current achievement, or at a student's current achievement, but below where we would like them to be able to be, then it's really challenging to ever catch them up, to ever really close that gap. And so some of this research around keeping kids in course level or grade level work to be able to push them forward more quickly is really sort of the crux of, I think, the next generation of helping all students to achieve. And I think there are also opportunities around recognizing the different strengths that different students bring. So there are students whose academic strengths are, you know, their most wonderful qualities that they're bringing to school every day, and we have students who have all kinds of other passions and abilities and strengths. And I think the more that we recognize all of those pieces in each child, the more opportunities there are for every kid to shine. I speak as a parent a little bit there. I have one child who is very academic and another child who excels in all kinds of other ways, and scouting is his big thing. And so I think being able to capitalize on those kinds of strengths that are very different, but recognizing that they're equally important.
I just want to welcome you and say it's just such a pleasure to meet you. Just a simple question, how do you envision your first few days, weeks, months here in Guilford going? How do you envision building rapport with your colleagues, introducing yourself to the staff, but also the families here in Guilford?
You know, I've thought a lot about that recently. I know that there is the possibility of some overlap time with Mr. Gohler, and that would be important to me, to be able to get to know everybody. We've talked about a plan for potentially being able to take some vacation time from my current position and spend some days here in Guilford getting to know faculty and staff and parents. But I think that there is really an opportunity to listen and learn. I think that the best way to enter any situation is to really look around, listen, and be a good observer and recognize what's going really well that can be celebrated. And I think sometimes when you work in a place for long enough, you don't necessarily recognize all the things that are going well. And so to be able to reflect those things back and notice those strengths, I think will be an important way to start.
Others? I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I want to make sure people have an opportunity if they have questions to ask. Yeah.
So I think as a board, and certainly the school administration has invested in the coaching model. I was wondering how you'll integrate that sort of model into your plans, and the value in it, what value you see in it. So that's the first part. And then the second part question that I have for you is, when was the last time you traveled and where was it?
I like that.
Oh, my goodness, I think I'll start with the last time I traveled. I tend to travel, I do a lot of camping these days. I have 2 scouts at home, so I think the last time I traveled was just to New Hampshire, and we did a lot of hiking and mountain climbing, and yes, yeah, I've learned to be really good at sleeping in tents. Coaching is the absolute most important part of a good professional learning plan. I hope to have a coach. I actually have many informal coaches right now. And I also think that it is absolutely vital for teachers to have the opportunity to have somebody to reflect their ideas back for them and to help them find all the goodness and thought that they have going on inside their own sort of teaching practices, to see that, to be able to kind of dig in and find it and realize that they really knew where to go next. Coaching has been important to me for a really long time. It started, I think, when I was a principal, maybe as a literacy specialist. I rewrote the job description. It's funny that I think about that now, but I did just rewrite the job description and propose it to really be focused on being a coach, because initially it had been split between an interventionist and some coaching duties. And I recognized that I couldn't always be available in the coaching places that I needed to be when I was also working as an interventionist, and that work impacted so many more children than the one-on-one or the one-on-2 or 3 that I could do as an interventionist. So I proposed that I would become solely a coach as a literacy specialist, and that was successful, and that model was very helpful. We were an almost 1,000 student school, and I felt like then I could actually impact all of those pre-K through second graders. And then that stuck with me, and it's always been a part of what I've believed in. It's actually a model that I brought with me to Old Saybrook, where we switched from having department heads to having coaches. And I recognize that those are 2 very different roles. We are not large enough in Old Saybrook to have both. I see some necessity in having both, but we have not had that luxury of size. So we have coaches who represent each of the 8 departments in our district, and some of those departments kind of get squished together a little bit. And they work with teachers to do all kinds of things, from modeling to doing some observing around something that a teacher is working on, to sort of give feedback and support there. A lot of times they just listen and ask the right questions to help a teacher land in the place where they sort of knew that they were going but couldn't quite work it out on their own. It's the kind of job-embedded professional learning that everybody deserves. It's the kind of growth that you can't get any other way, that a one-day workshop followed by another one-day workshop, it just doesn't ever add up to anything. You have to be able to be in the classroom on a regular basis and be reflecting on what it is that you're learning.
Thanks.
Anybody else have anything? So we have an opportunity then tonight. Dr. Freeman and essentially the interview committee has brought Dr. Amenigas to us. We have an opportunity to vote right away. We have an opportunity to go into an executive session if we feel that's necessary, but if not, can take a vote right now. Is there anyone who has a problem with taking a vote right now? No, okay. So I'm going to ask for a motion to approve. Here, hold on. Let's make sure we're at least doing this in the light. Thank you so much.
It's an omen.
I'm going to ask for a motion to approve Dr. Amenigas to become the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction Assessment for Guilford Public Schools.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful.
Welcome aboard.
Welcome.
Welcome.
out tonight. I know this is an extra meeting, so thank you
We
for
love
being
being
here.
We look
Coming to a
forward to
great
it.
community,
We
so
look for excuses.
So that's the culmination of 2 months of work. Thank you all
Yes.
very much.
Nice
I am
job, guys.
very excited with the result
Thank
that we
you.
have. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.
We look forward to working with you.
as
We look forward to supporting you in ways that you will request, and can't wait to have you join us officially in January, I believe.
January 17th is the official
Alright.
start date.
And Dr. Goss mentioned some potential overlap. Has that been discussed with Dr. Goller?
Yes, so Ms. Goller and I have talked about his schedule from now through the beginning of January, and we're hoping, you heard Dr. Goss say, we're hoping to move as much of that transition time onto this side of January 17th, utilizing the understanding and flexibility of my colleague in Old Saybrook, as well as some accrued vacation time, so that on January 17th, we expect to be ready to roll. I will note that Amity does have an existing relationship with Dr. Crystal, as well as a growing relationship with Mr. Goller, who have both said that they would be happy to be available to be continuing supports during an ongoing transition.
Excellent. Excellent. And I do just want to take the opportunity to thank the administrators, the teachers, the parents, the high school student who was involved in this process. It is, every time I'm in an interview process like this, I am so appreciative of the process and the many voices that have input, because I think all those perspectives help us make the best decision.
Thank you for remembering that. I think there were approximately 21 people involved in this search, sitting in different levels of that
Yeah.
screening process, and very much appreciate all of their time and thoughtfulness.
Absolutely. Here's what I'm going to ask. Our next item tonight is an executive session. So I'm going to ask that, I'm trying to think how to do this. I want to take a pause to give us a few minutes to
I've got some
chat with
contracts
Dr.
I'd like to get signed, and so if we take a quick recess,
Terrific.
I'll ask Dr. Goss to sign a contract with us, and then we can reconvene either right here if the room is emptied, and if not, I'll open the back space for us.
Should I don't want to move us into public, into executive session though until we're about to go in.
Yes.
Right.
Move to
So
recess.
I'm going to move to recess, please. Is there a motion to recess?
Motion.
Second, thanks, Jen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we're going to go into recess. When we come back, we will be voting to come out of recess and to go into executive session. When we finish the executive session, we were going to come out of executive session. There will be no votes. There will be no more public discussion. And so that will essentially be the end of the meeting at that point.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And I think you can, congratulations. I think you need to wait for that.